Welcome to Courageous Conversations with Heman, the podcast where we explore voices that inspire change, challenge norms, and reshape our understanding of the world. Today, let's turn the tables. Welcome to the virtual discussion table with me, Heman Das. Our guest is someone who truly embodies courage, compassion, and the power of storytelling. Harshita Rathore is a Delhi-based journalist, show host, and a storyteller. As the production head at the Newsreel Asia, she has been at the forefront of blending traditional journalism with the innovative storytelling. Her docu series, The Dinner Table, takes us into the lives of persecuted minorities in India, weaving narrative of pain, resilience, and humanity over the shared meals. But Harshita is not just a journalist. She is a bridge builder, which brings light to the lives of India's most persecuted, or we can say marginalized communities, be it the Dalit or the tribal community. When stepping into the conflict zones like Kashmir to uncover the human stories often that are often ignored. Her work has been celebrated globally with accolades like the AP Awards and Ladli Media Awards, cementing her place as a trailblazer in journalism. Harshita, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. Today, I want to go deeper your journey, your stories, and what drives you as a storyteller. So let's dive straight in. I would get started with my first question that Harshita, your journey has taken you from places that are both politically charged and emotionally intense. We're talking about the Kashmir and Chhattisgarh. Our audience might be curious to know if there were a movement in these regions that truly tested your courage, both as a journalist and as a human being.
Thank you, Heman, first of all, for inviting me to this conversation. It's a pleasure to be here. And my journey actually started with my first report in Kashmir. I mean, I started my journalism in July, and in August, the abrogation of Article 370 happened. And after which, there was a very strict curfew in Kashmir region. So that was my first reporting, and it was quite challenging to reach there because there were CRPF, there was army, there were armed personals everywhere. So to reach into an area which is which was still governed, or I would say which was still under the control of the civilians there, that was a challenging task, but we did somehow. And there was a point when after a lot of things, after the conflict between the civilians and the army happened, there was a point when the army was to enter into that area, and we were told that they are specifically looking for people, for journalists, especially international journalists. And my organization at that time was an international organization. So we were really worried, but somehow we got out from that area. So it was quite a challenging reporting, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to visit such area where people were suffering. And even in Chhattisgarh, though the gap is huge, it was my first reporting in 2019, and then I went to Chhattisgarh in 2022, 23, I guess. So quite a big gap. But Chhattisgarh was still easier, I would say, because though we went into the interiors of Chhattisgarh, it was difficult. We crossed so many CRPF checkposts. I mean, we almost reached the last checkpost of CRPF there. So it's for people who don't know, it's a Maoist Naxal prone area, and we went into Dantewada, which is where Maoist influence is very heavy and intense. So it was not very dangerous, but yeah, there were risks involved because it was in the interiors, and then we were looking for a very, very small village, or we can say a hamlet. So difficult, but given that, I would say that we are still national journalists. I mean, we report from Delhi, but there are local journalists from Kashmir, from Chhattisgarh, from even Northeast, and from the remotest regions. And what they are doing in such regions is an incredible job. Recently, there was a journalist in Chhattisgarh, a local reporter called Mukesh Chandrakar. He was murdered because he reported about a road which was not built by a contractor, and the contract got cancelled. So the contractor killed that journalist, and it has been over news in the Indian media, and that's scary. I mean, I am still a privileged journalist, even though I've reported from such areas. But people who are reporting every day from such areas are, they deserve an applause for doing their work in such dangerous circumstances.
As you mentioned that Kashmir was your first experience, is there is a saying that your first experience or anything you do makes it very special. And I also believe that it is really truly inspiring how moments like these shape not only your journey as a journalist, but also your personal strength. Speaking of the journeys, I'm curious about what first lit that spark for you in storytelling, that it's more than just a job. I would love to hear about the experiences that made you realize that this was a purpose you were meant for.
That's an interesting story, I would say, because as any other journalism student, somebody who wants to go into the media field, all you look at is becoming an anchor, be on TV and be famous, and make your parents proud or make them feel that their son or their daughter is on the TV. So for me as well, it was my first goal. But when I went to a journalism institute, and when I started working after that, I realized that anchoring is not journalism, and what I want to do in journalism is very different from what you see on TV generally, or what anchors do in the studio. So then that realization happened, and fortunately I started working with somebody who was into storytelling and who had been trying to push new kind of storytelling into journalism, which you often do not see on mainstream media. So I was fortunate enough to get a job um, where you actually see storytelling in journalism, and we started doing stories in a narrative format where we have one person telling the story, where you have emotions involved, where you are not just reporting about the incident, but you are telling with whom it happened, how it happened, and going into the into the details of the news and giving a human face to the news. So that's how we tried to bring storytelling into journalism. And not only this, we also started an academy so that we can push such kind of journalism among journalism students and new graduates who want to pursue such kind of new kind of journalism. So we started it in academy. We started teaching new journalists. We started um, taking more and more sessions and propagating our stories. So, given that, I feel it's a very deliberate process. I mean, storytelling is not easy. You require a lot of efforts to control your story. To even though it is journalism, even though there are real testimonies of the people, even though people are telling their stories, but still you need to give it a direction in order to make it more impactful for the viewers. If the person has told the story, but he has told in such a way that you do not connect with the person, then your story doesn't really make a lot of difference. So you want your viewers to understand, to feel the emotion what the victim or the survivor or the other person who has been suffering is feeling, and that needs deliberate and conscious efforts. So yeah, that's how my journey has been, that we started doing narrative stories and we started giving face to the news. And we since then we have been exploring and coming up with new ideas, trying to bring elements of filmmaking into journalism, where you have a character, where you have a protagonist. The protagonist has a goal. That protagonist goes through something, a conflict comes in that in protagonist's life, and then he or she overcomes it and then reach to a resolution. That's the structure of a story, right? And that's how we try to tell it in a new story, where the protagonist is a real human. It is not a fiction, it is a non-fiction storytelling. So yeah, that's how, I mean, I got more interested in storytelling, and I realized that this is a better way of journalism than just doing reports.
Yes, I do agree with you on this. I mean, I also believe that it takes whole village to tell or narrate one story. I mean, it is really such a powerful turning point for your career, which you that found your purpose through storytelling. Now let's talk about your series, The Delectable. I mean, it is such a unique concept, yet impactful at the same time. I mean, sitting with the people over a meal and discussing their lives is so raw and personal. Can you share a story of connection or conversation from any series till now that had a lasting impact on you?
Yeah, Dinner Table, for people who are listening to this for the first time, the Dinner Table is a series which is inspired by a concept which was in America after the after the campaign of Dalit lives, sorry, not Dalit, Black Lives Matter. So after that, there was a lack of empathy towards uh, black people in America. And then there was this whole campaign where people were asked to go to a black family and have meal with them to understand them more. I mean, understand them better, and feel that they are one among us. So through that was the inspiration behind this series, that we also wanted to start something where food is something which connects people, which is a common thing in everybody's life, I mean, you are from any religion, caste, class, gender, doesn't matter. Food is something that connects you, right? So that's how we thought that we will also have a series where we go to the families of persecuted communities who have gone through something, but because they might be from a different religion, different caste, so you might not be able to relate. So we thought that we'll try to make it as personal and as raw as we can, and try to humanize and characterize the people so that you understand them better. And that was the whole idea of the series. And it's a very serious conversation. If you look at all the videos, it's a very serious conversation about their sufferings, about the tragic incidents that have happened to them, and the pain that they have gone through. But because it's such a serious conversation, people may find it very heavy. So we try to bring in lighter moments where you understand the family through food, where you try to, because they are families from different communities, so you try to understand their culture, their food, and how they live. So it's a mix of lighter moments with heavier, serious conversation. So yeah, that's the whole idea of the dinner table series, where I cook and I share a meal, I eat with them, and when we have a serious heart-to-heart conversations. My favorite episodes, I all have been special in some sense, but yeah, I would say the one with the Dalit family was the most special one. Though we had to wait for that the person who I was interviewing. I mean, the main person who was beaten up in a temple because they used a tap which was supposedly to be used by so-called upper caste. So they were beaten up in a temple, and I went to interview the family as to what really happened and what do they face in their everyday lives. And the conversation just flew in a way. Though I had questions in my mind, though I had everything structure in my mind, being a storyteller, but even then the conversation was very, it was flowing. And I had such a good connect with them behind the camera. Though it was difficult for me to bring it on camera because you know they were uh, they were more friendly behind the camera. So I mean, I was connected with them for a very long time. They would call me, they would ask me to marry one of their relative, and I was like, no, I can't do this. So there was some personal connect with them. It was, I mean, if with everyone I have been in touch, although that doesn't happen very regularly. I could not talk to them very regularly, but yeah, it was a personal connect with the family.
Ashita, I really find that innovative way of getting to know a person and their challenges. Your connection also speaks volumes about the depth of storytelling in your series. But as you mentioned that with such intimate work, I can imagine that reporting on communities that are facing persecution, like Muslim, Christians, be it Dalit or tribe, must come with its own set of challenges. When you report on such sensitive and often sometimes controversial topic, what are the main challenges you face, and how do you make sure that these stories are told with integrity and respect?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Heman. So, first of all, there are not many news about marginalized communities, and it's already very rare. It's mainly the not the independent media and the alternative media that has taken up the charge to report on marginalized communities. And even though they are facing financial crisis, even though they have a lack of resources. Still they are trying to bring the voices from the communities as much as they can, and that is itself is a big challenge. Second is not having enough viewership or readership. Being an independent media, still you are choosing to tell their stories is in itself a big responsibility, and a responsibility to bring kind of stories which are either negatively reported on mainstream media or not reported. So any story that is, against that is against a minority, majorly Muslim minorities, the mainstream media will pick it up to create an environment of hatred. But if there are stories of persecution, if there are, where a Muslim minority or a Muslim person has been persecuted or a minority has been persecuted, mainstream media will not pick up such stories, right? So alternative and independent media is the only way we are, I think, we in India or in other countries, people are trying to bring such stories. And it's a challenging task, of course, given the resources, given the viewership, and given the pressure that comes from the government. The more you report on the persecution, the more you report on such stories, the more you come in the eyes of the government and you become a target for them. But still choosing to do stories, because we at Newsreel Asia, we are very absolutely independent. We have an independent policy and we are not dependent on others for funding. So that is one advantage why we can report on such stories. For independent media as well, it is difficult, but they are also trying. Although they also become an easy target for government. You can look at Newslick, you can look at News Laundry, The Wire, even the funders who are providing funds to independent media have been, raided by ED. So difficult in these times, but yeah, everybody is trying to do their bit, and giving voice to the people it should be given to.
It is incredible how much thought goes into balancing empathy and objectivity in telling a story through the journalism. My next question was about the media representing minority or Dalit communities, but you just beautifully explained it in this answer. So I will move forward to another question and talk about the representation, minority or Dalit representation in the media, which I believe is everything for them. And it is also clear that we need more inclusive narratives with journalism evolving so rapidly, especially through technology and social media. You are aware of that, and it is fascinating to think about where we are headed next. What do you think that journalism is headed in the next decade, and how do you see your role evolving in that journey as a journalist?
And that's, I mean, I'm not a very experienced person to say that where it is headed. I mean, I really hope that it goes in the right direction. But because such stories are neglected from the mainstream media, so there are in the alternative or independent media stream, we have organizations purely dedicated to such stories, like Bahujan Lives Matter or Dalit Lives Matter. There are Instagram pages which report on such stories. There are Instagram pages about tribal, uh, you know um, about tribals, and telling the stories about everything that is happening with tribals in all regions of India. So there's Maktub Media, which reports against persecutions of Muslim communities. So there are such news organizations who have taken up the charge to bring their stories. I mean, in front of the audience. Otherwise, in this vast world of journalism and stories, their stories are often neglected. But now, when we know that we want to know, now we know that if we want to understand about their issues, if we want to understand what they are going through, we know where to go, what websites to go, what websites to look for, and what kind of people to follow for such stories. So these kind of initiatives have been taken up now in the independent media, and I really hope that I mean, we have covered intensively about caste discrimination. I mean, we are doing we are doing a series called Mapping India, where we cover um, four most important significant issues under four categories, which is society, governance, economy, and democracy. And in every state, whenever we look at the research, we look at the sustainable development goals, we look at the society, we find caste discrimination so prominent. I mean, so prominent that every state has a new kind of thing happening in caste discrimination. Somewhere it is against, somewhere it is within the lid, somewhere it is against intercaste marriage, somewhere it is it is reflected in land distribution and everything, and in among farmers in Punjab. So it is so different. I mean, the community is going through different kinds of persecution in different states, and it is so prevalent throughout the country. None of the states we would find where, I will say that there's no caste discrimination. So we have covered it extensively, and we are still covering it. And even in the independent media, I think people are taking up such news, though not a lot, because so much happens every day. I mean, but I don't know the data right now, but there are so many Dalits being persecuted every day from different corners of the country, and it is very important to tell their news and their stories, because anything that happens in a metro city or a tier one city with any any upper caste person, the news will come very often on mainstream media. It will be picked up very quickly, but not against not stories about tribals and Dalits and marginalized communities from the region. So yeah, I'm very hopeful that since it is the May, I don't expect a lot from mainstream media, but I feel that independent media is an anchor in journalism, where they are holding a big responsibility of bringing amazing stories and stories that needs to be covered.
Harshita, it seems like your vision for the future of journalism is incredibly exciting. And it is also clear that a storyteller like you are paving the way for impactful change and better society or on a larger broader aspect whole world. With that, Harshita, this has been such an enriching conversation with you. I believe that your ability to connect with people, amplify the voices, and bring humanity to the forefront of journalism is truly inspiring. Thank you very much for bringing your stories and your heart to our virtual table today. Thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for being with me for this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you. To our audience, thank you for tuning into Courageous Conversations with Heman Das. If Harshita's words resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with others who care about meaningful stories and change. Until then, this is Heman Das signing off.